just need to accept the recording. Brilliant. So I can't begin to tell you how delighted we are going to be to do this talk tonight. It's going to be fantastic. We've got 4 leaders in tech, and they're going to tell you about their work and ways they've developed their careers in IT. And so we've got Jean, we've got Eva, Amma and Denise, who are all going to introduce themselves shortly. But firstly, I want to welcome you all on this Friday night to this insight session. It's actually been set up for our regular bootcamp attendees. So just a big welcome to Return to Tech, our Taylor cohort, and our 2 cohorts, Masinde and Croak from AWS. We've also opened this event up more widely to people in our community, so that you can also kind of get a chance to talk about our future opportunities around the boot camps that we'll talk about shortly, which are due to close on the 30th of April. But it's better to apply as soon as possible for those, because there's tests and stuff that you'll need to cover. But first of all, I'd really like to just hand over to our speakers tonight, because I want to give them as much profile as they can have, and give you the opportunity to also ask questions soon. So I'd like to introduce firstly Jean. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Thank you so much, Mariam. Hi, everyone. I am Jean Jimbo. I currently work as a product manager, not to be confused with project manager with a J. This is a role that I transitioned to 4 years ago after working as a software engineer. So it's a multidisciplinary role, and people rarely just go straight into it. You usually come from some other background, but I'll expand on that later. Thank you.
Oh, great, thanks, Jean. And over to Eva.
Hi there. Thanks, Mariam and Jean. I'm a data scientist, and I work currently at a biotech, building out a machine learning capability and team. I will talk a bit more about my background into getting to data science, but suffice to say, everybody's excited about it, and we can talk about whether that's warranted or not.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Eva. And Amma.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Amma Manso, and I'm a business analyst, a consultant. So I normally go into companies and help them to change their systems, change their environment to pick up new technologies. And I transitioned into this role probably around 8 years ago. Thank you.
Fantastic. And Denise.
Hey, I'm Denise. I am a software engineer and engineering manager at the same time. So my title is engineering lead, because it's a bit of both. And I've been doing software engineering for a long time, since I graduated university in 2009. So I haven't really transitioned into this role, but I've been doing various flavors of this role. I don't know how to add number of years.
Thank you. You dropped out a little bit there, but so we'll come back to what you were just saying about a number of years. But I'd also like to say hi, kind of like give Charlene a chance to say hi to everyone, as our fantastic leader of Coding Black Females.
I wasn't expecting that. Hello, everybody. It's actually really exciting to be here and getting the chance to be part of one of our events. I don't get a chance to take part in events that often anymore. So great to see all of you. Awesome to see so many of the students come along as well this evening. Congratulations on all the things you've achieved so far. And I'm really excited to see all the progress everyone's been making. I do check every now and again what's happening behind the scenes. But thank you so much to all the panelists as well for getting involved and telling us all about the amazing careers you've had, or that you are currently having, not that you've had. So thank you, and over to the rest of you to talk about everything that you're doing.
Yeah. So we've got some questions for the panelists. So we're going to kick off with our first question, which is really tell us more about your current role, where you work, and how you got into it. If you didn't, you kind of expand on what you started in your introduction. Should we start again with Jean?
Sure. So yes, I work as a product manager at a company called Sona Sauce or Sona. Sona provides an industry-leading solution that empowers developers and development teams to write clean code and to fix existing code problems organically. So this allows engineers, developers to just focus on what they like to do the most and maximize their business value. I've been at Sona Sauce since November, so pretty fresh at that business, but I've been doing product management for 4 years. Before that, I was a software engineer for 6 years. And most people, like I said, transition from one role or the other to product management because it's multidisciplinary. It requires that you have a lot of different skills that vary. As such, if you are someone who's in a role where you have some skills and then there's some gaps, maybe if you're interested in product management, it's really a matter of finding a role that allows you to maximize on the skills that you do have and then develop the ones that you don't have, because nobody has all the boxes ticked before they go into product management. There's no product management degree. Even if you do a course, there's only so much it can give you. So there's a breadth of skills that you need. And in case you're wondering what product management is, it isn't easy to describe, which is why I didn't start with describing it, but I will try to describe it. One of my favorite definitions, and it's very oversimplified, it's a strategic role that allows you to understand what problems are most valuable for the business to solve within the scope of what the business wants to solve. So you do your research, you try to understand what is really important to do, and then you communicate that to the business and you demonstrate that if we do this, this is where it will get us in terms of the vision that we have as a business, and therefore the business can make smarter decisions on where to invest engineers' work. So this is why a lot of it is an engineering centered role, because you have to communicate with engineers, developers of all kinds, and say, this is where we want to get to, these are the problems that we need to solve, and you collaborate with them to solve those problems. So it's a strategic role. You interface with not just engineers, marketing teams, for example. You help them figure out how to best to market it. You support the improvements of the product. So coming from all the way from coming up with the idea of a piece of work to do or something to build, to the day you decide to kill it off and it never exists again, a product manager is involved through that. So it's different from project manager, because project with a J, because the project manager only looks at a short lifespan of a particular project, and the idea there is to figure out, to help everyone who's working on that project to make sure that that project is completed on time and within budget. So that's the difference between project and product management. They're related, but they're very different.
Oh, that's such a good description of the difference. And also, I really like this idea of having to do the research to demonstrate the business case and how they make smarter decisions. And that seems to be a really good link to like Eva's work as a data scientist as well. And it'd be quite interesting to kind of understand the kind of where those things meet a bit.
Absolutely. I think so within data there is a huge range of roles. I think the underlying principle in it is to identify patterns from data. If you work as a data engineer, their responsibility is to shape and structure the data in a way that it's easy to extract insights from that. There's also a role in space where people work as data analysts, and their core strength is being able to tell stories from the data and be able to answer sophisticated and interesting questions based on some analytical and statistical methods that they apply. And I think increasingly many people outside of data analytics roles need to be relatively good at that. And then data scientists sometimes is a broad role, but in general, the expectation is not only that you can, take on some of the analytical aspects, but you can also develop models. Depending on what industry you work in, that might be a statistical model that some of you might be familiar with from high school, from your A-levels, and maybe even from university if you stayed in a scientific discipline. And more and more nowadays, there's also the expectation that you work more in machine learning models. If you have a good foundation in statistics, there's not really much difference between them. It's really more branding than anything else. But ultimately, your goal there is just to learn patterns from data, but use the models to extract that information for you, rather than it being something that you search for yourself. And then at the sort of end extreme is more machine learning engineers, and this is where the bridge towards software engineering begins, where when you're building machine learning systems at scale. So you have big models that are working on people's phones and people's applications, on web applications, and they're there to deliver sometimes real-time insights. There has to be a lot of infrastructure to support how do we keep that model updated? How do we make sure that it's giving you correct insights? And so there's a real spectrum really from the basics of what on earth do I do with the data I just collected today to how can I build a system platform application that provides sophisticated insights that no human could be able to do on their own. So that's sort of the scope in my field. I have been in this area for 6 years. I started off as a statistician. I was working in academia, and it just so happened I had a lot of data and didn't really didn't know really how to tell good stories around it, and thankfully I was lucky to meet somebody who helped me to learn statistics and to apply it, to learn to build models, and that helped me gain confidence not only in programming but also in delivering insights. And from then I was able to move across different industries, and now I'd say I've gone from maybe somewhere between a data analytics and data scientist person to working more in machine learning engineering, really building out like models to think about how they might scale and support the deliverables for the business area that I work in. So that's me. Oh, we can't hear you, Mariam.
Sorry. Thanks so much, Eva. Could Denise, could you tell us a bit more about your role too?
Yeah, so hopefully the internet's a little bit better where I am right now. I had to quickly turn it off and run downstairs. So I'm a software engineer, but my background was, actually I did a software engineering degree, right? So I kind of got into this industry very traditionally. I went to University of Otago in New Zealand, South Island. Yes, it's very cold. And that's where I kind of did my degree. I did an honors degree. And when I left university, I actually got my first job with a fintech consultancy based here in London. So my first day of work was amazing. I got to fly to London for work. And I did consultancy in fintech for 8 years. So I was working in banks, mostly in Australia. And when I say consultancy, it's that, I mean, that was a while ago. So I just did the math. It's like 13 years ago. But back in the day, it was like it was a little bit random in Australia, right? I did a lot of random things. Sometimes I'd find myself doing a little bit of programming. Sometimes I'd find myself helping out on a grid project. So like putting in like enterprise grid solutions in banks. Sometimes I found myself doing upgrade projects for the big software that the banks use to do their finance stuff. And that's about as fintech as I am. I don't even know how to explain some of the stuff we did. It was it was a lot of random things, right? If you find me on LinkedIn, there's a lot missing from my CV. It's very sanitized because I would do one project for 3 months, one project for 4 months. After a while, I got tired of it. I just needed a little bit more stability. And I almost quit, but my manager said that send me to London permanently. I was like, oh my God, I get to move to London. London's very special for me. I love the city. And so I took it and actually started doing more programming and more coding and less of the consulting stuff, right? So I had to reskill myself in software development practices because I was a little bit rusty because I was a consultant, not a developer. And kind of that was like the last 5 years, I guess, that I've been in the UK. No, I've been here longer. 7 years I've been in the UK has been mostly, pretty much entirely software development. As I grew in my senior roles, as the years went by, that's when I transitioned to become like a tech lead. And I was mentoring people. I was a career mentor. And then I moved into this company that I'm working with right now, Mind Gym, which is great, where I'm an engineering lead when I'm managing people, but I also get to write code all the time. So my main role is writing code for my team. And I have a Jean on my team as well, a product manager, which is awesome. It is amazing having a product manager. I went 2 months without a product manager while we were hiring and it nearly killed me. Jean, you are queen. Honestly, I can't do my job without her. Right. So my job is collaborating with her and making sure that the things that we build actually align with what the company needs. Right. It's her job is to tell me what the vision is and to help me kind of internalize that and make sure that I totally understand why I'm making the thing I'm making. And my job is to make the thing, right? It's also to suggest ideas for improvements to Jean, things that business might not have figured out they could actually do. I think a lot of stuff I do sometimes, like, people don't understand the power of tech, right? They go, oh, I don't think you can probably do that. It's just a wild idea, but can you make this button green? It's like, no, I can do that. It sounds really dumb, but it's a lot of like just empowering people to ask for the things they actually want. But yeah, I feel like, I don't know if I've answered that question correctly, but that's kind of what my role is, writing a lot of code and collaboration.
Yeah, I love that idea of the ability to empower people to ask for what they want. That's really, really fantastic. If we, can see more of that.
I do say no, though.
But at least they're asking.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And Amma. Sorry, I'm going to mix it up a bit. So Amma now, and then next.
Okay, yeah, so as I said, I work as a business analyst, and I would say that I work with all the roles that you've heard described, actually, because it's quite a broad role. Essentially, it's, as a business analyst, we work with change. So usually a company wants to change the systems, change the culture, change various things about what they're doing today in order to be more efficient, in order to bring better value to the company. So you've got to think in terms of, you have an existing, let me say, system, and we want to create a new system. And so as a business analyst, I'll be the person that will go through speaking to various people within the company, finding out the requirements in terms of what they want, looking at the gap. How do we get from what we have today to what we want in the future? Working out, sort of problem solving, working out how we're going to get there, and hopefully, like with people like Jean, building that kind of product or system or processes that the company eventually wants to have. So it's a very varied role. It's a very flexible role as well. One day is never the same as the next in terms of the activities that you do. And I think that's why I also enjoy it. One day you will be having meetings, talking to people. Generally, I would say you do have meetings quite a lot, probably 50-50 in terms of independent working, and then meetings and collaboration with other people. So yeah, there's a lot of involvement, you know, communication, speaking to people in order to get the requirements. And it's speaking to people throughout the company. It's not just people in tech, it'll be people in the finance team, in the marketing team. It could be vendors, developers, just anybody that's going to be give input so that you get the right requirements in terms of what you're going to build and the scope, you know, how much or how big the project's going to end up being. In terms of my journey, I would say I started off actually in psychology, and then I did I got a scholarship to do a master's, a one-year course in computing. And I say that because even with a few months or a year's training, you can actually, you know, leverage that to get roles in computing and work there for seems like a lifetime to me, but a very long time. So having got into tech, after the course, I actually went and worked for a company which was owned by one person, and it was a very small company. I think there was probably 3 of us all together as a programmer. So as a C programmer, if any of you know the C language. And from that, I then left. I stayed there for probably about 1.5, 2 years. And then I went to work for, I got a role in something called business intelligence, which really is sort of helping companies to be more competitive, working on systems that do reporting, data analysis, reports, looking at the data warehouses. It's a very, it's a very varied role. And from that, I went to work for British Telecom, as I said, and I think I stuck with that business intelligence for quite a long time, and probably still do it today because the role, as I said, is so varied. So one thing I'll say, I know I shouldn't give tips now, but I think you'll hear through our stories that you can start somewhere in tech, so to speak, and opportunities lead you elsewhere. And what is really key is the role, is the skills that you gain, that if you gain certain skills, you can do various other jobs. So, you know, the fact that you might be good at communicating or developing in something, which, as I said, I start off as a programmer, then into data warehouses, they're still skills that I use today. So I think that sort of hopefully will give you something to think about going forwards. So at the moment, in terms of who I work for, I'm a consultant. So I'm starting a new role on Monday, actually, and it's in cybersecurity. Now, I would say that it's still very similar to what I've done before. It's going to still require the same kind of skills that I've used before. It might be a different area, but I'm still going to sort of gather requirements, speak to people, and help them to transition to something new. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you started talking a bit about a day in the life. Is there more you'd like to say about that? And, you know, kind of that's kind of a question for the others as well that I'll come to.
Yeah, I mean, I could pick up, as I said, I'm starting a new role on Monday, but I can tell already what I'm going to be doing, because it's very similar to what I've done in the past. So I can imagine on Monday I'll go in, usual preamble, you know, sort of introductions. Obviously it's a bit different because it's the first day, but it'll be in terms of meeting people into it within the company that are going to help me understand what the business issue is, what it is that they want to do. So I know it's a digital transformation project, digital transformation, whereby it means that the company's got these systems at the moment. They're probably very old legacy systems that have been in place for probably 10, 20 years. And they want to now move into new systems, adopting new technology, probably like the cloud technology or more secure systems. So they want to adopt that new technology to be more efficient, more secure, as I said, more competitive. So I'm going to be trying to find out from speaking to different people, documenting what is going to be required to bring forth that new environment that they envisage. So it's going to be a lot of meetings, a lot of independent work, as I said, where I'm going to be working on my own, thinking through what I've heard and envisaging how I'm going to get there and describe it to other people so that they can actually understand what the issue is. And one of the things, just very quickly, is within the role, it's understanding what the issue is, but it's also about asking why several times, like a very sort of insistent child, really. You know, why do you want to do this? Why do you need it that way? So that people can actually think through what the purpose is of what they're trying to do to make sure that we get the best product. Because sometimes people, you know, organizations might just do the things because it's always been done that way. So it's a case of sort of coming in and challenging the status quo a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And that idea of actually what you're describing is kind of being able to take people on a journey that kind of relates to kind of building these, you know, kind of that's related to a vision and that takes a lot of communication. And actually, one of the things you've all said very clearly is the importance of communication. I'm going to go to Eva again to talk more about a day in your, you know, a life in your day, or a day in your life. One of the two.
Sure. I think it is really varied for me. So in my past role, I also worked in consulting, and so it was really, really intense, lots of meetings, and I, you know, was pretty much meetings during the day and developing at night. I think consulting was a bit of a blur for me. But I mentioned that because I made a deliberate step away from that type of environment to where I work now, which is a biotech startup. The company is pretty small, just 40 people, and my team is small too, which also means that my day is pretty flexible. I have I'm able to kind of shape and define what I'm going to do that day, that week. And it's pretty broad. I think probably I'd say maybe 70% of my time I am programming, maybe working on some data pipeline. For context, I work in drug discovery, so a lot of our work is how do we gather enough data to represent molecules in a way that computers can understand. So sometimes I'm working on like the data pipelines to support that chemistry understanding. Other times working on models that can understand the structures of molecules and determine what about them makes them interesting to follow up as medicines. And I think around that as well, because I have quite a research-led role, I spend probably 10 to 20% of my time researching wider literature on like new models that are coming out, and particularly ones that I might be readily able to implement in our work. I think data science moves so quickly right now, especially with I can't even blame, you know, certain like new innovations. Probably in the last 5 years, it's changed so drastically, and probably the last 4 months, it's changed drastically again. That doesn't mean it's not necessarily impactful for people entering the business, but I think it's something to be very aware of. It moves so much faster than I think a lot of other sectors, because there's so much investment being thrown into it. And so there's always a new model, a new framework, a new tool, a new thing that's coming out. It can be a bit overwhelming, but that shouldn't, I think that's almost sort of more reason to get into it, but not to allow yourself to be overwhelmed by it. But I say that to emphasize that a good portion, I deliberately dedicate time trying to stay up to date to some extent, not distracting myself with every new thing, but making sure that I have some awareness of the emerging trends in my field, but also because we are a small team, I also need to be the person that says to shape what our machine learning product is and how that relates to the rest of the business, which means that my research isn't just academic and literature, it's also some market research. What are our competitors doing in the machine learning space? How can we position ourselves as a unique business delivering models that are different, that provide value that supersedes other areas. And then finally, the last piece is engaging with other parts of the business. Again, because it's drug discovery, majority of that is lots of scientists. Sometimes it's business developers who are looking to sell our work, maybe our machine learning capabilities to external clients. So it's a particularly broad role. I would say it's taken me a while to get to this point. When I was first starting out, I really just spent most of my time programming and delivering models, but hopefully that gives you a flavor for what things might look like for you.
Amazing. Absolutely. And this idea of like meeting during the day and coding through the night, I'm kind of like curious about how much that is across the industry, because that kind of like shift of kind of needing quiet focus time to kind of then also be out and about and kind of keeping conversations going that you've all said is so important to kind of like keeping the projects rolling. Denise, could you tell us more about the day in life and go a bit deeper into what it's like on a daily basis?
Yeah, no, for sure. So, I'm an engineer, right? So I write code during the day. I think over the years I've gotten into the habit of making sure I block out time for things that I have to do, such as lunch. So I have little sections that I blocked off. And I think I'm really lucky. Like the last few companies I've worked for, the management and the product people have all understood the need for engineers to have solid blocks of time to do focus work, right? So we try and have meetings on a specific day at specific time slots so that we can actually dedicate a longer periods of time towards actually writing code. Because for me, writing code is like falling into a really good book. If I'm interrupted every 5 minutes to do something, I can't really get into the book. But if you give me like a blankie, something good to drink, and like 4 hours, I can smash through quite a decent amount of a book. So that's how I think of programming. A typical day for me, because I'll explain the methodology that we use. So we work with like the agile software development methodology. So agile is more about, it's like a way of writing code, of being a software engineer. It focuses a lot on being human. Now I'm trying to come back to my interview questions. Being human, lots of communication and collaboration and flexibility, right? Flexibility through the way you respond to change. And then the flavor of agile methodology, of agile software development that we do, is extreme programming. And extreme programming has got all these extra things in it that make it even better, right? So things like pair programming, where you write code at the same time as somebody else. So for us, that is like, and other things as well, besides just that. There's also how you review the code that you've done. So if you've written some code, someone has to look at it and make sure it's okay. So on a given day at 9:30, I start my stand-up where we come together as a team. We've got 3 engineers, we've got our product manager, and we've got our principal engineer who's in our team right now, and we talk about the work that we've done. Right, the day before, we talk about the work that's upcoming. Our product manager is great, and he's got this this board which shows you exactly what the plan is for the next few weeks and the next few months. The next few months are really fuzzy. Like I've got a vague idea what we're doing, but I know what's happening this quarter. Right, so he shows us that to us to remind us what it is we're trying to do, because sometimes you get lost in the exciting new thing that you're working on. And then that's like a 30-minute catch up, really quick and fast. We break down the things that we're going to be working on, and we might split off into pairs to actually work on that new function or that new feature. And I'll do that for a few hours, take my lunch break. But there's other work that I do as part of that. So if anybody finishes a feature that needs to be added back to the main code block, so it needs to be I'm trying not to use technical terms here, but if you finish it, you have multiple people working on the same project, right? You got multiple people writing the same code, similar code, that's going to fulfill a particular function. So you have to kind of be able to put all of that together, right? And be certain that it's going to work as a whole. One of the checks and balances that we have is having somebody else look at what you wrote and make sure that it's actually correct, right? All the plus and minuses are there. If it's actually doing what the requirement said it should do, which is a big thing. Sometimes we make mistakes or misread something. So I do a lot of that as well. So reviewing other people's code, giving suggestions for improvements. And then another part of my job, which, oh my God, Evelyn was talking about, is the learning aspect. So we try and dedicate, not every single day, but an hour each week to actually look into something new and keep abreast with some new stuff that's coming out, right? My biggest thing at work right now is like the fear of not knowing enough to do my job. It's a little bit wild. So every single day I just try and like find some time to just read something about the area of tech that I work in, just to make sure that I'm really absorbing and really understanding what it is I'm doing, because I am working in a very, very technical team. I think that's pretty much my day, actually. I write code, I review code, and I learn new stuff.
And I love that. I'll always keep that now, this idea that you need solid blocks of time to do focused work, but coding is like falling into a really good book. I'll keep that as a kind of motivation, because I love reading, and yeah, so then maybe kind of transfer that to coding. Jean, would you like to tell us more about your day in your
honestly,
life?
truly, no 2 days are the same. There are some routine tasks and maybe some recurring meetings, but aside from that, things change a lot because our industry changes a lot. So maybe some of the common tasks I can describe: conducting research, that's a big one. You need to understand what's going on in your market. You need to understand what your competitors are doing. You need to know as much as you can about the users that you're developing that software for, so that you can understand their needs, problem areas, maybe some pain points nobody has actually paid attention to. Like Denise said, working with engineers to find solutions to problems. As a product manager, I focus on the why. Why are we solving this particular problem, and why are we solving it now rather than later? Why are we solving it over a different problem that we could be solving? I really need to have good data, or what they call product sense, which is more an instinctive thing, to be able to justify why one thing is more important than the other. And then I collaborate with the engineers to figure out what we should do, what the solution to the problem should look like, after giving them a really solid understanding of the problem. And then they focus on the how. They're the experts on coding, so I give them those blocks of time. I don't interrupt them with chat messages or anything, because they really need it. And I would just like to mention that I came from an engineering background, so I do have quite a big advantage when I'm working with software developers, because I've had experience doing that. Product managers, like I said, come from different backgrounds, and that's okay. But just want to, I guess, hone in that if you're someone who comes from a particular background, you want to maximize your product role based on that. If you come from a medical background, if you end up in like a medical tech company as a product manager, that's excellent, because you have domain expertise. So it's always good to think about like the skills that you currently have, but we can talk about that a bit later. Some other tasks that I focus on are like developing a strategy. Like right now I have to deliver, what are we going to do the next quarter? So I need to give them like a rough idea of the plan, so they know what to focus on now, not to be distracted by what's happening in the future. That's my problem to figure out. And then I communicate that to the business. I prioritize as well. Like I said, I have to say why this is the one we need to focus on now. We can focus on the other things later for these reasons. And these are the things that have to be done in order for us to get, in a particular order, for us to get from this particular position we're in to where our vision says we should be by the end of the year, or something like that. Something else that we do is focus on being data informed. We're making a lot of decisions all the time, so we need to make sure that we have the right data. We're sourcing that data. We're making the correct interpretations of that data, trying to find what are some hidden problem areas that we don't know, or also measuring how our progress is. We can say that at the end of this year, we want to increase X by 40%. So we need a way to measure those things and those outcomes, and then be able to report back to the business on how far we got towards that 40%, and then learn from what we, maybe if we made mistakes, learn from that, and then come up with a better plan next time. So there's a lot going on here. And maybe the final thing is the coordination of development. And this is really working with all the teams that I mentioned before, like marketing, development, and communicating to stakeholders to tell them what we're doing, why we're doing it. So it's a lot of, like I said, multidisciplinary. There's a lot of different skills you need, but you don't have to tick every box. You just need to tick a significant, I guess, the ones that you're really good at, play to your strengths, and then you can work on the other ones and build them later. Because I'm not good at all these things. I'm just good at some of them.
And actually, you know, this kind of, we'll come back to more about the skills and how you keep a kind of an overview and kind of constant learning skills. But I kind of want to talk again back to you, Jean, as well, to talk a little bit more about what was the expectations you had going into the roles you have, and then the kind of reality of them, and, you know, is there any kind of like differences?
Yeah,
or...
okay, product management is a tricky one because every company does it their own way. There's what they call product culture, is how they approach product management. So every company does it differently. Some companies I've worked in, there was a lot of project management as well. Some companies less of that. Some companies required me to do a bit more coding. So it really depends on the business, but my expectation was that I would have, I guess, some influence in how a product is shaped. As you know, engineers do a great job in solving problems, but they don't always influence that strategic outcome. And product management is a great role for that because, to be honest, often I'm the only Black woman. Even in like companies that have been thousands of people in it, I was the only Black female product manager, which is a bit sad because you know some of these business decisions are being taken and we're not in the room, and at the end of the day they impact us. So I was hoping for that influence, but I'll be honest, it is not always easy because product managers, you don't have power, you only have influence. Those are not the same thing. And so I have found it difficult sometimes to be able to speak on behalf of users because, you know, the people with the capital C's have the power, but at least you're in the room and you can try and advocate in that way. The role was, I thought I knew what the role was, but the more time I spent in, I realized there's just so much more. It can be broader. I'm lucky that in the business I'm in right now, it's very focused, and it makes it easier for me to do my job because I know exactly what the expectations are. In other businesses, you're basically the person that does everything that nobody else wants to do. So, so sometimes they call them product janitors or product waiters. You just go and people just tell you, oh, we want this thing done. You go back to the development team. But to be honest, that's not how product management adds value to a business. Being able to be autonomous and say, I've done the research, I've done the work to prove that this is what we should do. That is the ideal scenario, but unfortunately, it's not always the case. So it has been challenging, but I think the secret is being able to find businesses that do look at product management seriously and value what that role brings to the table, and working in such companies. It's not easy to figure that out, but I think I've found one, but it has not been easy to get here. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, kind of that kind of like going into a company and trying to understand what you expect and what they expect. Amma, you're just about to do that now, and I'm just kind of wondering how you're feeling about this kind of idea of kind of managing expectations, yours and the company's.
Yeah, so I'll be going in as a consultant, so I know it's a fixed time anyway, but I still know that I'm going into a company where the project realistically will be quite long term, at least maybe one to 3 years. I've been told 3 years, but we'll see how it goes. And I know that as I enter that particular project, and I mentioned before, I know the nature of these kind of projects to do with digital transformation. They end up being fairly deadline driven. I don't want to say stressful, but they can be at times stressful because you've got particular deadlines that have to be met. You have to coordinate with a lot of people. So you have to be a team player as well. So I know that I'll be going into a role, organisation, where, as I said, there is going to be a lot of stress, where there has to be a lot of collaboration, a lot of communication to identify the requirements. I know that there's also going to be a lot of resistance, not necessarily to me, but to the project, because nobody likes change. People always like things done the way they're done today. And even if you tell them it's going to be for the better, sort of, it's for the best for the organisation, people still like to do things the way they've always done it. So there's going to be some kind of resistance. So it's going to be required that you work with people, keep explaining, going around in, sort of not in circles, but keep repeating the reasons why we're doing the project. So I think I'm going into that role knowing, sort of even from day one, what I will expect in the lifetime of that project. Yeah. But I also think on a positive side, which I'm really positive about, I know that it's going to be really enjoyable because it's going to be varied, that I'm going to learn new things, even though it's things I may have done before, but I'm going to learn it from a new company in a new way. And so you have to go in and be adaptable. You have to be willing to change and be flexible, which I also enjoy too. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I've had a funny little thing go on my screen. The chat has completely covered you all. I don't know why that happened there. But Eva, could you also tell us about what your kind of the difference between your expectations and the reality of working?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest challenges within the data industry is because it's so young, really nobody has a nail on what it is they want. And so the expectations vary so much from company to company. I really I feel much the same as Gina said, but I think it's particularly acute because whilst there's an element of product management that's always worked with engineering, as it's developed, it's a new thing for people to consider data science as a product. And so it's been really, I think everybody has a different perspective on what it is they want out of it. I would suggest that for anybody like entering the industry, ask a lot of questions about really what are they expecting you to do, because the expectations, or rather, it's easy to be sold a dream. Everybody will say, yes, you'll be doing AI, and if you ask them, what do you mean by AI? And what do you mean by machine learning? And it really turns out that it's actually what they want you to do is maybe analyze some data, maybe build some dashboards, maybe work more on the analytics side. And of course, also the opposite can happen as well. And it's rare for it to happen, but very occasionally they'll pitch the job at a different level to what they're expecting. Now, that's not to say that data analytics is easy by any means. Don't let anybody say that it is. There are many people who are terrible at data analytics. What's my main point? Aside from people's perceptions of data analytics, I think that my biggest issue has always been that different companies will call a data analyst, and that data analyst does different things to another company. I think the second thing I would say is that because of varying perceptions of what data science is, the appreciation for the work that goes into it is not necessarily considered. So I think actually claiming focus time I mean, I had to go on a whole mission to make it clear that I can't just, you know, whip something up in half an hour. These graphs don't just come out of, you know, the ether, don't pluck the thin air. There's a lot of work that goes into it that sometimes is really invisible to, particularly if you're presenting, you know, in a boardroom. They're just like, oh, nice graph, I'm happy. Not knowing that it's taking you 2 weeks to get the data and the answer to provide that, to provide that story for them. I think the third thing that I didn't expect, and is still something I'm grappling with, is because is around this sort of hero culture that is kind of prevalent in AI. What I mean by that is that because it's a new field that's so heavily funded by the Googles, the Metas, and all the investors you can imagine, there is this feeling that the best way to make progress is to build the best, most complicated and sophisticated model. And of course, you see that play out sometimes. People build something cool, and of course it's in the news, it's all over LinkedIn. It's all like it builds some hype around it, but that culture also feeds sometimes into the teams. And so people forget that, hey, you know, 1 + 1 = 2. We can still do that. We don't need a model to do 1 + 1. Let's not forget, like, there's
especially when it's not doing it properly.
Oh, exactly. Like, sorry, if your model says 1 + 1 = 3, then we have a problem. Like, we've heavily invested in completely the wrong place. So I think it's something to maybe keep in mind, that particularly if you are in a data role within an AI company, that hero culture is very real right now. I think it will dissipate a bit once the hype, you know, the hype cycle kind of fades out a little bit. But I can foresee for a little while longer, it might be a bit of a challenging environment to be in. But I really think the people who will get the furthest and be great at their jobs are people who are sensitive to the problems that exist in the company and are able to solve them in the most efficient, pragmatic, and explainable and transparent way.
Oh, thank you. And I think that kind of links to what Amma was saying about kind of keep repeating the questions and keep kind of like that interrogation going, because there is such flexibility in the terms, and that kind of, unless people understand what's being said when they're saying machine learning or data engineering or data science, there's always going to be this slippage, and this kind of idea around the hype cycle or the hero culture, or, you know, don't believe the hype, that kind of attitude around kind of like making sure you know what the technology does. And that comes to your point, Denise, about kind of this constant learning and being able to kind of articulate exactly what the technology is doing and what's important to focus on, and bringing up Jean's point made very clearly about the importance of priorities. So kind of then there's this kind of other question we want to kind of explore around what does success look like, and how do you set yourselves up for success? I don't know who would like to go first on that. Is that I pick someone? Yeah, Denise.
Haven't heard from Denise in a minute.
Success for me, it was even before I joined this role. So I actually only just passed probation like a month ago. I'm new to Mind Gym and kind of learning the process. I was a little bit worried. For me, like, my expectations for the role are my expectations for every single software engineering role that I've ever had. That was a highly collaborative learning environment, right? Where people work together to build something amazing. We learn together, we celebrate together, and we go through all. I'm a collaborative person. I'm a people person. And so for me, success is bringing everybody along with me and also going along with other people. It's literally how I got to where I am right now. To be successful, to get to where I am right now, I had other people who looked around and were like, hey, Denise, would you like to learn this new technology that I'm learning? I might actually be able to get you on a project if you learn this. I'm learning it because I'm sick and tired of being on the bench, which is what happens when you don't have any roles. And so like they pulled me along with them. And for me, like that is a measure for success for myself. If I'm able to pull other people along with me and help them progress in their careers and work towards something that makes them feel fulfilled, that's it. So when you talk about setting yourself up for success, for me, it's surrounding myself with people who are going to help me with that as well. So I look out for those opportunities to meet new people who might be able to teach me new things or work with me on new things. I look for mentors. I go to conferences. I do a lot of like random social stuff in order to help me gain that knowledge and progress in my career. But I also try and give back as much as possible because I'm a billion times certain that there's no way I'd be where I was if I didn't have certain people in my life who kind of pulled me along and helped me along. So that's setting myself up for success and other people for success as well.
Fantastic. Eva, would you like to kind of talk a bit more about what sets you up for success?
I think the first thing that I would say is always to give yourself options. I think again, like I feel like I keep harping on about how new the data science industry is, but it really does affect a lot of things. I think it's important to always build up, like maintain your learning muscle, but build up your flexibility so you can move in different contexts. So I'm comfortable doing data science for the chief executives, if that's what you want. But I'm also comfortable doing data science for an AI conference. So that means that for me, that it's opportunities I come by very easily. Whilst if you're sort of on one extreme or the other, sometimes it can be, it's easy to get sort of pigeonholed in one area. I think probably the other thing that I would say is, no matter what anybody says about tech, it's always a people business. So I think it's so important to grow and build relationships with people who are in the area, not only to help and support each other, but I think also particularly as Black women, because we will so often be the only Black woman in the room. It's been really important for me to find validation to how do I explain this? If I experience something at work, it's important for me to have people who understand my experience and are able to help me contextualize that it's not just you. Me too, I experienced this. This is how I handle it. You might handle it a different way. And having people from the most outspoken Black women to the, to much quieter and introverted and maybe even shy women, knowing how all of them are able to deal with similar situations is also really helpful for me in terms of knowing how to navigate and progress in my career. So yeah, I think those are two things: be flexible and give yourself the options, and build the relationships that help give you peace and sanity, and hopefully support your career.
Thank you. And Amma, how would you kind of like think through this question of how you set yourself up for success, and also maybe really touch on that point Eva's just made around your experience as a Black woman in the workplace, and what advice you can give to others in that situation?
Yeah, sure. So I think for me, I've been in tech for a long time. I don't even want to say that, but there are decades in my number. But so I've been in tech for a very long time, and I would say one of the things in setting yourself up for success is being a lifelong learner. For example, you can't progress in tech without putting time aside. We've mentioned it before, with that focused time to keep learning, because we've touched on the fact that tech changes so fast, and if you don't keep up to date, you're just going to be left behind. I think the other thing in terms of setting yourself up for success is you have to be slightly vulnerable, in terms of you're never going to know the answer or all the answers. It's about problem solving, and you can't do all the problem solving by yourself. So you're going to need, a network, or be vulnerable to ask questions of your colleagues that you're working with, in order to, sort of help to resolve the problems. I've been amazed, sort of, I can work on something in the past, and probably still now, and you can actually sort of beat yourself up, feel so stupid, for example. And you think that it's just you, but actually it's quite normal to feel that way. And then you can just go and speak to somebody, and you get a aha moment. They just say something, and then actually they give you, help you get a solution to the problem. So I would say, and it's been mentioned, never be afraid to ask questions. No question is stupid. Actually, you put yourself down by not asking questions, because probably everybody else is asking questions. In terms of, like many of the other panelists, I've always been like the only Black woman in a team, in an organization, in a department. But for me, because I started off in tech years ago, I didn't actually realize that it was a big issue at the time, because I just knew that not many, when I started tech, I mentioned that I did a course, like a scholarship. I had a scholarship to do tech, and that was the reason why I was given that scholarship, is because there weren't many people in tech anyway. So it wasn't seen as a Black woman issue. It was just like, we need people in tech. So I was just happy to be in tech. I think it's only afterwards I started realizing that there aren't many people that look like me around. So I would say, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody to help me. So, but now I think there are sort of groups like Coding Black Females, lots of other groups. There are communities that you're able to get a mentor. So I would say leverage that as well to help to get success. There are people that you can lean on, and you should utilize that network as well. Yeah.
And we always say a big thank you to Amma for all the work she has done in supporting Coding Black Females in developing the mentoring networks, and also towards the important research around Black women in the tech industry. And Jean, how about you? What can you tell us about setting yourself up for success?
Oh, some really great points from Amma, Eva, and Denise. I really second those. Are really good. I would say maybe in the context of product management, there's some roles where you do a lot of invisible work, things that are not very tangible to other people. There's a popular saying, in fact, nobody asked you to show up, which they say about product managers. So I would say it's very important to measure your own success and keep tabs on that. Luckily in product management, you kind of get used to this because you're always setting objectives and stuff. So you start to have a knack for how to measure how well you're hitting those objectives and keep track of it, pop them in your CV. So that is a way to make your work more tangible and more visible. Speaking of visibility, if you have an appetite for it, having, I guess, a presence, I think Eva mentioned conferences, if you're going to post things on LinkedIn, etc., being visible out there, it can help, I guess, create or market yourself, even when you're just sharing what you're learning or questions that you have. I think, like Amma said, it is a bit of a vulnerable position to just put yourself out there, but it does create a really good impression on people. And you start to, you know, have conversations with people and learn a lot from different people, and they find that helpful as well. I think it's a great way to set yourself up for success. Mentors and coaches, I definitely want to point that one out, because to me, it has been the difference. And I'd say you definitely need more than one mentor. They give you different angles. I have one mentor that helps me navigate politics in the organization, another one helps me with technical issues, another one helps me with different types of things. So they all contribute. Nobody has all the answers. No one knows everything. You basically need your group, what can I say, your executive team that helps you in your career. And I would say Coding Black Females has some great people as well. And there's lots of people you can find online who have similar experiences to us and can kind of help you navigate some of these things. In my role, I have to stay on top of things. I particularly look after Python, the programming language in my organization. So data scientists, machine learning practitioners. There's a big spotlight on machine learning and AI right now. So unfortunately for me, it's a bit of a frantic time, because I'm like trying to stay on top of things that are literally changing by the hour all the time and give that information. So staying on top of that and being visible in my organization and sharing those things, like maybe daily, I just go on Slack and say, hey, there's this cool thing. It means that people start to respect me as someone who has knowledge of that domain. So it is a way to set yourself up for success. It's not easy. So you want to pace yourself. And be kind to yourself. I think that's a very important thing to do in any career. Things do sometimes get really difficult. So you really have to also know when to rest and look after yourself. I don't think we talk enough about taking care of your mental and physical health, especially if you don't look after your mental health. It usually comes out as your physical health and stress. I would say take care of that, because burnout is real and it can really derail your career. I would say something unfortunately I've learned the hard way. But I would say setting up, being conscious of how you're looking after yourself and making sure you have routines or whatever you need to do to keep yourself healthy is really important for success. Yeah.
Thank you. And that kind of reminder to kind of, I like that kind of, it's not easy, pace yourself, be kind to yourself. You think that's kind of like something you could put on a sticker, isn't it? And that kind of like to keep the work in focus and but kind of within a kind of a frame, so that it doesn't completely take over and kind of you can distort it at times. And I'm going to come to you all in a minute to ask you a bit more about transferable skills in your role and any advice for our students and community members around skills to develop that are transferable. But also I think it might be, because you've all hinted about this big change in the sector at the moment, and I think I'd like to maybe look at what you think are the big changes and the things that people need to take on board as they're entering or kind of wanting to progress in tech. But before we do that, I want to kind of remind people that have joined us about our boot camps. We've got members from our boot camps have joined us tonight, but we also have 2 boot camps that are about to close on the 30th of April. I'm just going to put them in the chat. One is Entry to Tech, which is an opportunity to learn using Java and learn about and work with our partners to kind of learn about the full stack. And then we've got 2 courses that are Return to Tech that are coming up, and one's full-time with a salary, and the other is part-time in the evenings that's about to come up. So check those out on those links, and also if you go to check those links out, have a look on our website, because there are also other opportunities for mentoring. So, and also if you've got any questions, just put them in the chat. Because we'll come to you next, and this is your chance to ask these fantastic leaders in tech your questions and to get advice, and so please think about questions. You can either put them in the chat or put your hand up and we'll invite you to speak. So Eva, maybe I can come to you first about this question of transferable skills in your role, and also advice to our students and community members about transferable skills to develop, but also this idea of what's coming up in tech. What have you got your eyes on as big trends?
Can I ask just a clarifying question? With respect to the transferable skills, is it transferable skills they would need to be in the role, or that they would acquire within the role?
Both, actually. I think, because we've got different people with different skills level here. So people that are kind of entering into tech, and actually we've just got a question that kind of feeds into that. What advice would you give to people in the boot camps who don't have a degree in tech to land a role in software development? So it's really, I don't know if that's too much to take on, but
yes. Oh, if I forget something, just jump in and remind me. So I think with working in data, if I really think about it, I've been working with data since I was in high school, probably earlier. The very first time they forced me to draw a graph and draw a nice line of best fit with my nice little ruler, that's working with data. Where I chose to put that line, that's modeling. It's just that we get computers to do that. I just did it by eye based on what I saw the relationships were between the points and the x-axis and the y-axis. And so fundamentally what I do hasn't changed since I was however high. And I feel like I use all of those skills right now. What has happened, I guess, is that I have more intuition of things that could be wrong with data, because I think the thing that somebody working in data should always be much better at is being able to critique and nose out the potential different stories that could be told with the same set of data. And I think that skill is something that's going to be increasingly important, being able to apply critical thinking to any data context. You will pick that up in many other careers, and it's valuable in any other in many other contexts as well. The great thing about working in data as well is that it's agnostic to whatever industry you have. So if you start from your knowledge of the industry, but you learn maybe a few things about data, maybe you learn how to build dashboards, maybe you learn how to code in Python or in R, and you look for jobs in the sector that you know, then that's a great way in without you having to learn a whole amount of new things. You don't even need to complete a boot camp, just find an entry-level role that will allow you to leverage the domain expertise that you have and and maybe a little bit of the technical requirements that they might have for an entry-level role. I think with respect to what you acquire doing the job, I think it's not an area where you never really work in isolation. If it's rare for a data scientist to also be collecting the data, so you're always going to be asking somebody, please can I have some more? Please, can you help explain to me how you collected this data? Can you help me understand, what drove you to collect it in this particular way, so I can make sure I use it in the correct context? And then on the opposite side, I might do whatever I want with those models. Maybe I build a dashboard, maybe I create a machine learning model, maybe I create a nice sophisticated a language model that can, just speak to people. That doesn't there's still the problem of how does that relate to the people who are using it. So you will always, the skills you acquire in handling people in a way that's not only objective, but is really helping to guide, influence, and unravel the truth beyond, you know, what the data says, what different opinions are there. I think it's surprisingly much more than just, you know, writing code and building models. There's a lot of people interface in that, and I think that's what I would expect would be a great thing to take forward. The question was, so I mean, I don't work in software development, but if you are working boot camps, I don't have a degree in tech. Everything I've learned, I've learned after my degrees. I was lucky to find people who helped teach me a little bit. If you're doing a boot camp, you already step ahead of me. You have a whole team of people that you can ask, aside from your instructors. I think, and I think I'll stick to my previous point as well of, particularly with data, leveraging the domains that you know, and that might be if you did a biology degree, if you did a history degree, like if you find places where there's an alignment between what you learned and your bootcamp knowledge, you will make a lot more progress. Well, you find it easier to find entry-level roles, but I think you'll also progress faster. And then the last thing, with regards to what's changing in tech, I think that AI is becoming much more integrated into our lives. It has been for a long time, but now I think it is going to be part and parcel of our working day, as well as the stuff we do on a Sunday when we're bored and want to take photos of our cat and somebody bought us an outfit for our cat. Like the intrinsicness of AI in our day-to-day lives is just going to be so different. And that also means that the work, I think, might shift a little bit. That's not to say that the skills you've gained in a bootcamp or you've learned to code, they're not going to disappear anytime soon. But what will change is that I think the demand will shift more towards your ability to challenge and to apply critical thinking to the things that you see, and also to how you decide to solve problems. I think solving problems will be the stronger driver, not just can you code and can you code well. It will be, do you know how to solve this problem? Can you do it independently, or are you waiting for an answer? Can you solve more sophisticated problems than I can solve if I just put my question into an AI and get the answer back? So I think that the challenges will become more sophisticated at work. But I don't think that really, I think that will take a while to distill into the roles that we see right now. So that shouldn't be a cause for panic, I don't think.
Oh, that was a really good answer to kind of, and the kind of the importance of the communication skills, the way you've described kind of moving into tech, using domain knowledge, and the kind of the intrinsicness about AI and the ability to be a critical thinker in relation to what you see, and the importance of being able to solve problems. Is, you know, you've covered so much in that. Thank you. Then we have another question which we get, and I totally understand how difficult it is when you're in that position, around knowing which path to take in tech. I don't know who would like to take that on, as well as kind of think about transferable skills and kind of where you think tech's going.
Yeah, I don't mind taking on that question, actually. That's okay. Yeah, so you said the question was sort of which path to take. Is that right, Mariam?
Yeah,
so.
I'll read it for you. I'm interested in getting into tech, but unsure what role, as there are so many interesting paths. Is there a way of getting exposure to help decide, please? And that was from Lovette.
Yeah, so I think it's absolutely right. There's so many interesting things to do in tech, and it's really, it is really hard to know. But I think one thing you have to lean to is some of your strengths, the things that you like. For example, you might be a person that likes working independently, you know, sort of maybe working alone. So then not necessarily that all programmers or software engineers like working alone, but I know that when I coded, I could say that I'm a person that can be quite focused and want to spend time on my own working on a solution. Or you could be somebody that likes engaging with people most of your day, you know. So you could be, for example, as I said, I do a business analysis now, where I know that it's going to involve a lot of engagement with people. So I think it's leaning into knowing what your strengths are and what you're passionate about can also help to lead you to which particular path you want to go. But I would also say with tech and like my journey, and I think some of the other panelists' journey, that where we ended up today is not where we started in the beginning. So sometimes you just have to take an opportunity, and you'd be surprised what other things can come forth from that opportunity. So I think it's sometimes not overthinking. If you have an opportunity, just go for it, and you can navigate your way within that company or elsewhere into the role. You'll discover then even more what you like and what you dislike, I think, is one of the things I would say. In terms of, I think we were touching on transferable skills. I think if I go on to that broadly, I'd say, I think Evelyn touched on problem solving. You've got to be somebody that realizes in tech, that's what we deal with, is problems and trying to find a solution to an issue that exists. So I think you have to be very task focused, you know, you have to be kind of disciplined, also have to have some kind of attention to detail, you know, sort of in terms of planning. So you've got the problem, you need to get to from X to A to Z. How are you going to get there? And you've got to be sort of think of it, as I said, quite organized in terms of thinking through how you're going to navigate that journey. So I think there's being task focused and attention to detail. I would also say one of the other transferable skills is time management. We work according to projects, we work according to deadlines, we work according to deliverables. So you have to know that when you're working, that, you know, you work within a team as well, you work within people that are dependent on whatever you're going to produce. So you have to be, you know, sort of working, knowing that to manage your time or the impact it has on the project overall. So I think good time management, you know, it's not good enough to come up with excuses of why you haven't done that, because at the end of the day, the impact on the project, or, you know, it can be devastating. Or if you know that there is an issue, then you've got to be somebody that says, you know, I'm falling behind on this, I need some support or whatever in order to get there. So I would say time management, relationship building, being a team player is also a transferable skill that will work in any role that you have in tech. Communication we've talked about, and listening are core as well. You know, you've got to understand what the problem is, and also being adaptable. Things are changing all around you. Where you start today is not where the project might go later on, because things happen to change. So I think you have to be prepared for change in whatever role you do. So I say that those are transferable skills, and just really why I push those is, having heard to the panelists, as I said, our journeys didn't start off where you know, we haven't finished where we started off. We aren't where we are today, based on where we started. But however, the skills that we got from, you know, in our early careers have still been used. We've still been able to transition them, transfer them to all the roles that we're doing now, and that will go on. So, you know, nothing is ever lost in terms of the skills that you do, and those skills can take you anywhere. Those core skills, you know, to work in other countries, it's independent of, you know, what company you work for, what industry it is. These are just core skills, as I said, like problem solving. If you have that as a skill, it can transfer to any country, any role, any industry, you know, communication. And so I think those are some of the transferable skills that I think are key as well to focus on.
Actually, Amma, there's a couple of other questions that are around touching on your experience as a BA, but I have to put my hands up in terms of time management. I'm hoping people can just stay for a few more minutes, because just to kind of touch on some of the transferable skills from Denise and Jean. But if Amma, if you've got a moment just to kind of give a bit of advice to somebody that's wanting to start out in as a business analyst, and in relation to what they should put on their CVs when they're starting out, and kind of what minimal experience they need. And Grace particularly is transferring from the education sector. She has some PM experience. Yeah, so I mean, I have to be honest as well that you know, I've worked in so many roles in tech, like with data, you know, data analyst, you know, even touching on a little bit of the data science, you know, programming. But with the BA role, it's a case of taking those things that you think are transferable and putting them on your CV, and, you know, sort of wording them in such a way that you can actually that can actually benefit you. So, for example, I mentioned like being a team player, you know, gathering requirements. You know, I don't think a BA does it in the real life world. I think in terms of what we do in tech, we do look at these problems. So as I said, I mentioned it's problem solving is one of the general things I think that we all do, whether it's a BA or whether it's a product manager, whether it's a software engineer. So, you know, looking at those core skills, and how I did it, as I said, is watching lots of YouTube videos, Googling, you know, sort of finding out what the skills were for the BA, and sort of highlighting my CV in such a way that it came across that I could do those things, because I felt confident that I could do what the BA did. And so I think as an entry level, it's a bit difficult for me because I didn't start off necessarily as an entry level BA, because I'd worked in tech before. But I do think how I would describe it is look at your strengths and try and word your CV in such a way that it looks as if you have those skills. And I'm sure you probably do have those skills in terms of some of the roles and sort of other roles that you've done before. Even with education sector, for example, if it had been that, I didn't actually look at the question, even within the education sector, the fact that you work with other people, you know, children, other sort of teachers and staff, that means you're going to be a team player, for example. So the fact that is that you're going to put things that you like working within a team, the fact that you like understanding what issues are and resolving them, they're the kind of things I think that you can actually shape your CV in a way to sort of highlight your strengths, if that helps. Thank you, Amma. That was great. And Denise, we've got another question, which is around kind of project management and how to find or how to become a project management, do project management in fintech. You know, you've got a bit
I think this is a Jean question.
Oh, so sorry, Jean. Yeah. Okay.
I'm like, no, I can't answer that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Sorry. The question didn't pop up until just now. Is it the one from
okay.
Cecil?
From Jean, Jeannie Paul. I appreciate listening to this amazing panel. May I ask if you all have any advice on how a new project manager would go about finding the correct team for a fintech payment startup? So I'm not entirely sure whether she wants to become a fintech or whether she's got a fintech and wants to join, have a project manager join.
Also, is it project or product management? Because I'm in product,
yeah,
not
she
project.
said, yeah, exactly. She said project, so it's not entirely your thing. Is exactly what you said at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I know some project. All of us probably work with project managers. Without a project manager, things can go haywire. Teams that are not working together can clash too much and derail the whole project. So I don't really have specific advice around that, but I think with fintech, I mean, London is probably one of the best cities for that, for sure. You're in the right place if you're in London or at least in the UK. I think there's lots of people in our networks that could help. So probably directly reaching out to someone could help.
There is a question around product management as well from Cecil. And she just wants advice about websites and companies to follow in order to put product jobs. So maybe that's something we could pull together as a resource and put onto
I know plenty of good websites.
Community.
I wouldn't say that there are companies to follow, but I'll dig out some things and pop them in the chat as we talk, just to save a bit of time, if that's okay.
That's great. Thank you, Jean. And Denise, is there anything more you'd like to add around transferable skills, just to finish off?
Yeah, so my most favorite people to work with are people who've transferred and to take from other roles. You guys are brilliant. You bring so much fresh insight to things, and there's so much excitement and enthusiasm about the role. You are such a pleasure to work with. I literally don't know any other senior software engineers who don't love working with people who transferred and take. People who say, oh, we did a boot camp, we're like, yes, come on in. So the things that you bring in is a level of professionalism, right? So I'm talking like follow through. If you make something and it doesn't go very well, maybe you break something in production, but then you fix it. The ability to go and double check to make sure, oh, is it actually fixed? Talking to the team that's affected. Hey, did we actually solve your problem? The kind of customer service skills that you get from working at Burger King. You know, like it sounds really, really crazy, but those small skills that you learned doing random jobs. I worked at Burger King, by the way. So doing random jobs, they're so useful within tech. That's the type of thing I can't teach. So when I'm looking for a junior developer, yes, I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to make sure you know your stuff, right? So if you're interviewing for a Java role, for example, make sure you go and do the Java interview questions for a junior. So if I ask you what does solid stand for, you don't look at me like, because then you won't get the job, right? But the other things that I'm looking for are just those levels of professionalism. You know, like the things that you do to be a good employee, a good co-worker, that's it. We literally can't teach that, right? We were hiring for senior engineers recently, and we're not looking for someone who knows how to write TypeScript or is, you know, like a super functional programming person. No. We're literally looking for someone who knows how to pair, how to collaborate, how to teach others, how to learn from others, how to ask questions. That's what we're literally looking for. And if you can demonstrate that, so being able to answer questions, if they say, you know, can you tell us a time when you had conflict and how did you resolve it? Sit down, literally write down a good answer, STAR methodology, you know, look that up on how to actually respond to a question like that. We're not, if you're a junior, we're not looking for you to be super tech savvy. We're looking for you to be actually a good person, like emotionally, like a nice person to work with. That's all I want. I can teach you everything else. Okay.
That's so wonderful.
It's so nice already.
Yeah. I'm going to do a couple of things now as we close out. I'm going to ask Charlene to come back because she's got this great idea of let's all take a photo. So I'm really keen to get people to kind of get your cameras on and and just kind of say hi and have a bit of a wave. And I hope Charlene's there anyway. Hi Charlene, she might be eating her pizza.
I am
Oh,
here.
hi.
I'm frantically looking in the mirror to see that I still look like a person.
Oh, you got pizza on you. And then I've got 2 questions to answer in the chat as well while we're getting you to get your cameras on and getting Charlene to kind of like come and get the photo. Oh, you're on mute.
This is as much as a person I'm going to look like.
Yeah,
So this is what we've got.
Cool. But so I've had one question which was about can you join a boot camp from the USA? Unfortunately not at the moment, but Charlene is really keen that people still apply, because then we can make the case for putting on a boot camp in your area. And then there's another question about how much do they cost? Well, I always say they have a value of around £7,000, but we can deliver them to you for free, but we need your commitment and time. It's not free in terms of the amount of time you put in, and that's around 25 hours per week. And it's important that you deliver for us, because we need to deliver to our partners, and then we can deliver more for more Black women to change tech in the industry. So it's brilliant to see people joining us, and just as we kind of like end out, it's just a really massive thank you to our panelists. People kind of like say hi. Oh, it's nice to see so many lovely people.
Good to see so many faces. Thank you. I've been listening in the background, like nodding along and being like, yes, that happened to me, or yes, I recognize that. It's been really good to hear. So thank you so much for your contributions. And I really hope that everybody who attended was able to gather loads of really important information from it as well. So thank you. Thank you very much for getting involved. Awesome. And now it's time to take a photo, because I love a photo, and it means that we can utilize it on social media and say, hey, look, we do events. Come to our events, because they're amazing and we have these fantastic inspirational women who are always here. So I'm going to do a quick countdown. 3. Oh, wait, hang on. Let me get my fingers in the right place and remember what the key combination is. 3, 2, 1. I have one. Woo! And I'm going to do one more. So 3. I don't know why I'm using my fingers. I can use my mouth. 3, 2, 1. Smile. Lovely. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you to the fantastic Mariam as well for all the amazing work that you do to support the students, to support everybody on the boot camp, but also to run our events in the evenings as well. So it's been absolutely amazing. And to the panelists, again, thank you so much for sharing all your fantastic knowledge. Really excited for the next one. Enjoy the rest of your Friday.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Mariam, are we going to have the name of the linking of the panelists?
Yeah, we'll kind of make some connections, and also remember everybody's in the.
I like to connect with
chat.
Amma.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.